Elton John, easily the most problematic Brit, right? So problematic. Elton John came out with a very, very juicy memoir. So apparently Elton John is fine with talking shit about people as long as they're dead and they cannot defend themselves. Because everybody he talks about is like, must be in the grave like, what the fuck? Like, so I'm gonna read some of it. You know how like Kris Jenner, when she's talking about Kim Kardashian's sex tape, she was like, as a mother, I was horrified. But as her manager. Like, that's how I feel like reading these headlines or whatever. I'm like, morally, this is disgusting. I'm so against it. But professionally. So this is what he had to say. So the first quote is about Andy Warhol. Before you read it, I want you to know that the John in this is John Lennon, the Beatle. Imagine that guy, okay? The guy who sings Rise and Shine. No, so this is about Andy Warhol is knocking on Elton John's door, right? And he goes, so this is what John Lennon says. Has he got that fucking camera with him? John asked. Okay, I'll do it. Has he got that fucking camera with him? John asked. Do you want him to come? I lost it. Do you want him to coming in taking photos when you've got icicles of coke hanging from your nose? Bruv. Andy Warhol was apparently an annoying person. Like, come on, let me in, man. Like, that's what I picture. Come on. And then John Lennon was doing lines with Elton. If I find out that Paul McCartney did coke, 100% he did. What's a memoir? What's a memoir without some cocaine usage, right? Who do you think didn't do cocaine in the 70s? God damn it. Even Betty White. Second quote. Okay, this is about Elizabeth Taylor, and this is what Elton John said about Miss fucking Taylor. If you were wearing jewelry she liked the look of, she'd somehow just charm you into giving it to her. Sticky fingers, Miss Taylor. A charming little klepto. I remember one girl I went to high school with. I'm not gonna say her name. Oh, but I want to so bad. Whatever, another girl that we went to, I remember she'd come over to people's house and they'd be like, oh, she's coming over, hide the silverware. Imagine. I'll tell you after the show, Molly. Okay. True. They'd be like, oh, she's stealing fucking everything. Crazy. And then I stuck up for her and she fucked my boyfriend. It was a great time for me. Yay, high school. And then the third one, Steven, cameraman, feels so sorry for me. Oh, because she was a klepto. She was stealing silver and boyfriends. I get it. So this is what Elton John said about Freddie Mercury. He was too frail to get out of bed. He was losing his sight. He was still definitely Freddie, gossiping away, completely outrageous. Have you heard Mrs. Everybody's British. Have you heard Mrs. Bowie's new record, Time Machine 2? Dear, what does she think she's doing? That means Freddie Mercury, until his dying breath, was a messy bitch.
Yes.
And I love him more for it. You know what I mean? He's like, I need my last bit of energy to talk shit. It's like that's gonna be moi. So the fourth quote is easily my favorite, okay? Hit him. So this is Elton John, right? Apparently he would host like crazy orgies at his house, but he said that he was like so house proud, meaning like he was so like obsessed with like his house and it being in order that he wouldn't participate, but he got off on watching people. Imagining Elton John with a boner. Like, so he would get his rocks off from like watching people fuck, right? So that's what he said. I'd kind of set up my perversion, have 2 or 3 guys doing things for me to watch. No, Elton. So they'd end up having sex on the snooker table with me shouting, Making sure you don't come home on the bays. Bays? I'm not wealthy enough to know what that means, unfortunately. So what I love about the 70s, 80s, and 90s is that everybody was fucking. Everybody was having sex with each other. Oh, God. For me, my screen is black and white, and I thought our graphics team put peepees all over the screen. Penises. I was like, oh, my God. My mother's church group is watching. Okay, so apparently the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, what I think is like, it was before social media, right? So you could do whatever the fuck you wanted. Everybody was like, Mom, these are dicks. Like apparently everyone just like, fuck it, and you could do whatever you wanted because nobody had like camera phones and shit, right? So like for me, if I was in the 70s and Molly was like, groovy, Tef, I heard that you were fucking like 3 or 4 guys last night. I'd be like, prove it. I probably would.